So, for the third sprint review, where you've got some fun actors to play with, and I upgraded board interaction systems. I repaired the old bug where basically board was not rendering if we wanted to change its width or length. Now it's working perfectly, right? It was just because the algorithm wasn't saving the tiles in appropriate way, and we needed to change this to that serialized array, and now works everything fine. Also, all the tiles and board managers and components such as spikes have are set as main selection. So now while selecting board element, they're selecting the priority actor, the parent one, instead of just selecting the mesh, from which we cannot access any of the component. We cannot change any of those tick boxes. So clicking in the editor was just basically useless. So for tile information, as we could earlier alter the walls, now we've got additional elements such doors. We cannot actually press the door button where there's already a wall. We can set wall traps, and we can only set a wall trap on the wall that actually has a wall. We can set up buttons exactly the same way. We cannot insert a button if there is no wall. We cannot do this on door. We can only do this when it's a wall. Otherwise, it's not gonna go through. We can also, besides choosing a starting tile, we can choose the tile to be spiked or to have a pressure plate. You cannot choose both of them at the same time. The program will just basically tell us that this tile was already arranged element. So there's death animation for player character that can occur while hitting the projectile or spikes, which will basically restart the current level. This can either happen in a rolling state or walking state without any issues. As presented. Furthermore, we got some interactions and connections between buttons, pressure plates, doors, wall traps, spikes, all kind of fun stuff. So starting with doors, if you want to get through this little gap over here, we're gonna put the door on the right direction. We're gonna put ourselves a button just in the top, and for this button we're gonna set up to interact with spikes. That's gonna be here. Spike is gonna have a switch option. For the door, it's gonna be a switch option as well. For the bottom button, we need to activate objects. We're gonna delete those two. That's it. Actually, we wanted them both. So we want those doors, door off, and those spikes over here. There you go. So now the button is set up to activate and set a tick to any objects that attached to it. So if you just try and go through the door while they're closed, nothing's gonna happen. That's why we need to get a button. We're just simply walking into it, being blocked by the wall, obviously, but it's gonna activate any object attached to it. So now we can walk here without any problems and continue with our turn. Same as the pressure plate. The pressure plate, the only difference is I'm not gonna attach any objects to present that it won't activate spikes. I'm actually gonna just attach the doors. Got door off, there you go. When you walk on the pressure plate, it's just activated when we put any weight on the current tile, whether it's opponent or player character, the projectile won't interact with the pressure plate. So when we walk on the plate, it's just gonna activate the doors as presented and go back to the normal state if you leave the plate. Same, working everything with the rolling state, so player is technically still in the tile, and now it gets off. Everything works without any collision components. So as we can see, pressure plate hasn't got any actual collision, no tile information, no collisions. Everything is being processed by managers such as board manager, component manager, turn manager, and the game manager itself. All information is stored manually just to process and do this flawlessly, because in case of collisions, some things can go wrong. Some movements can slightly distort the collision detection, and in that case, game would result in expected bugs. I wanted to avoid that and do everything in a very technical way. So everything is controlled by the flow, by the turn manager. Turn manager will detect after player's movement to send a signal to all enemies to move. After enemies move, all projectiles and traps and any other components will make a turn before player character is allowed to move again. One thing I want to add, there are 3 different switches for elements like doors, spikes or wall traps. So if it's constant, the switch won't affect the flow of the object at all. So it will constantly stay active or inactive, which doesn't make any sense to put this object in the first place anyways. Delayed object will activate itself and deactivate after a few turns and stay inactive for a few turns as well. We can set it all here by switching. For example, I want to make those spikes activate and deactivate every turn. So after 1 turn, the spikes will activate. I'm gonna remove those elements just to present everything working well. So with spikes being set to both conditions to 0, after walking, they're gonna activate and deactivate every turn. Okay, so if you switch this to turn delay, it's gonna stay deactivated for 2 turns and stay active for 1 turn, additional turn. So in total, it's gonna be 1 turn when it's active and 3 turns when it's inactive. So 3 turns passed and spikes are back. That's how it works. Same we can do with doors or wall traps. Wall traps, as you can see, have both same activation delay and length and switch types. We've got additionally projectile speed, so how quick the projectile should move around the map. So if we just swap it from, we cannot do any lower than 0, it's gonna automatically switch to at least 1. If we do 2, if we do 1 for now, and switch this to 0 just so it's not delayed, so it just shoots every single turn. Its projectile speed is 1. When we switch this to 4, it's gonna fly through all those corridors and automatically self-destruct, but also destroying everything on its first space. So the projectile shot from the wall trap will self-destruct after hitting any object, whether it's enemy or player character. There are no enemies yet. This is the plan for the next sprint. Hitting the enemy or player, it will destroy itself, kill the component. In that case, it's player character, so it will restore the level. There's also a missile projectile that can be spawned from this component. In this case, missile projectile will also damage all actors on all tiles around. So all tiles on the left side, up side, corners will be affected and will destroy all objects on the So if you get close to the missile, you also affect the player and initiate the restart level sequence. Um, um, Between that, I was trying to repair as many bugs as possible, reduce the um, program flaws, reduce the code length, name all the aspects so it's more understandable for a person that is not working on a project right now, and generally improving the level appearance, still trying and learning how to control the zoom throughout the level so the scene can be seen from every angle and can be zoomed in, zoomed out, but the board view will not be lost, so I need to set the boundaries. And for the next sprint, my main target is gonna be a Nemesis and some camera work and main menu switches, this kind of stuff, just to get ready for actual level creation. And for that sprint, that's everything.